Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Hello, Mia. Nice to see you, Mia Wallace. Dark Side of the Moon. We ready for a roll call? Roll call. Audrey, Gill, Sheepfly9. The usual suspects are all here. Tater, Bug, thank you for moderating. I appreciate it. And yes, please hit the thumbs up on the way in. So I wanted to talk to you guys today because Innocence Fraud Watch keeps putting out these amazing blogs on Karen Read case. And there's been some news in the Karen Read case. I think I should start it with that. Then I'll move on to the blogs debunking this Dunkin Donuts myth. And I've always felt it was a myth. I've never been sold on it, if you've been following this channel, that Karen Read had bought Kaley Dunkin Donuts that morning, and meaning the morning of the 28th of 2022. And that is what set off John O'Keefe. And they fought because Karen Read was just too generous and too indulgent with the children. And while I think that her elaborate gifts and working against John O'Keefe's parenting could not have helped the situation, surely their text messages tell quite a different story. But before I start on that, on the civil case, so if you guys remember back to the first public civil hearing, so what I mean when I'm talking about the civil case, I'm talking about the O'Keefe's civil lawsuit against Karen Read for wrongful death. And pain and suffering of Kaley goes into that. So when on the first public hearing, Karen Read's South African lawyer, Damien Seligson, stood up and said, "Oh, actually, we would like to be plaintiffs in this case and join in a whole host of people, a list as long as your arm, of people who Karen Read has complaints. Like the O'Keefe family has complaints against us. Well, we have complaints against Yuri Buchanan, Michael Proctor, the McCabe's." I mean, it just went on and on and on and on. And really wanting to make this a confused case. The judge didn't seem inclined to do it. And we've been waiting for that filing so they said, we're going to tell you, we're going to ask to bring in, and they say they're going to do this to streamline the case. This would do anything but streamline the case. It would just confuse the case. Karen Read wants to sue them all civilly, which I don't think she has a leg to stand on. It's really just making a defense, a kind of conspiracy defense that points away the finger from Karen Read to all these other people and confuses the jury. That's really what they want to do. And the way they're arguing it to the court is that they want to streamline the case by bringing in these other parties so it all can be dealt with in this one case. Because otherwise, I mean, it's for the same reason. I mean, you can really look at this as Karen Read's pattern of behavior. So for the same reason that Karen Reed called Carrie Roberts, I mean, really, she called Michael Camerano first, and then Catherine Camerano. They were her first marks. They weren't around. I mean, Catherine Camerano was around, but she wasn't at work. Well, she was at work. Then she called Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe and had them be an audience to her theatrics, her performed hysterics, her feigned hysterics, and pretending to not know where John O'Keefe was. So, and they were also in there so that she could point the finger at someone else. So Jen McCabe, she made Jen McCabe plays the 911 call. There's no recorded call of Karen Reed ever calling 911, of ever getting help for John O'Keefe. She got other people on the scene so she could point away from herself. This is very much the same thing. So on this, so we've been waiting for this filing of Karen Reed saying she wants to bring in all these other people and all their arguments, their legal arguments for it. And it looks like it was done in secrecy, which is a new one for Karen Reed, who's used the courtroom really as a PR pulpit. So let me see if I can go to X. Here we go. So Truth Over BS shared this on X. So this is a About the Law show.
Civil case. I don't know if you can shed it.
With Mark Betterow, who is one of Aiden Kearney's lawyers. So Aiden Kearney being the blogger who was really another wing of the defense and propagandized the public with all of Karen Reed's innocence fraud nonsense.
Any light on this or not, but I do know for a fact that the attorneys for Karen Reed have, through the Superior Court Rule 9A process, told the other attorneys they've filed their motion privately to the other attorneys to add third-party defendants and to add additional causes of action. I don't know if you can shed any light to us as to what's in that motion, which doesn't get filed in court publicly until the other attorneys have the chance to respond. Or what do you think the chances are that the judge in that case will allow all of those third parties that her attorney?
So we won't see actually what she filed until the other lawyers, meaning the O'Keefe's lawyers, Mark Diller et al., respond to it.
Attorneys talked about in a hearing a few weeks ago.
Well, that's the extent of my knowledge is what you just referenced. I'm not privy to anything other than what's been reported or said in open court. And I know they listed the several names of the usual suspects you would expect that they intended to add to the party and go after. I understand their argument. It's going to at the same time, by putting it on them, it exonerates Karen in a civil sense. So why not have it all in one trial? The impression I got, though, from the judge.
See, they love to use this word exonerate. It exonerates her civilly. I haven't seen any evidence that exonerates Karen Reed. Mark Betterow. I haven't seen any evidence that exonerates Karen Reed. I've seen evidence that shows that Michael Proctor could have done his job more professionally. As far as writing mean text messages to his friends about Karen Reed, but I haven't seen any evidence that points away from Karen Reed, shows that anyone else did this. They couldn't even really develop a third-party culprit in the either trial 1 or trial 2. They were allowed to develop it, but that just meant they went full hog arguing it with no evidence. That Judge Canoni was such a horrible judge for those cases, was the perfect judge for Karen Reed. I mean, the point of, you have to have evidentiary support to your arguments, but not so in Judge Canoni's courtroom. Just bring up whatever you want.
At least back then, several weeks ago, was that he was not inclined to, I mean, I'll let you say whatever you're going to say, but, you know, I think you have a tough road to do that, and I may force you to start your own proceeding against them. So I'll have to wait and see. But as far as what they provided to the other side, I would assume they have the claims against those third parties that we talked about, and we'll have to wait and see. I don't know.
Yeah, I got confirmation that yes, the Rule 9A package was sent out. I just thought maybe you could give us some insight into what's in there.
I didn't even know that, to tell you the truth. I know nothing about the civil case other than
Okay, Sergeant Shults.
He knows nothing about the civil case, except that it will exonerate Karen Reed. Not biased at all. Not biased at all. That whatever she has in there, it's going to exonerate Karen Reed, surely. So that is just a little update on the civil case, which I'll be watching and reporting when I can on it, but I am about to move on to, start to talk about some other cases too on this channel. So hold tight on that. But I'll be staying on Karen Reed as much as I can. You know, I think it's, I'm interested in the civil case. I don't know if my audience is. I'm interested in it. So I'm going to be talking about it. And when there's an explosive blog like this one, written by Innocence Fraud Watch, I will be reporting on it. So back to this. So we've all heard about this Dunkin Donuts story. It's just something, it's never sat right with me that this would be this much of a disruptive argument. Like you took Kaley to Dunkin Donuts before school. It is undermining his parenting. I get that. But along with all the other evidence of Karen Reed, I've been talking about Karen Reed spending her last Christmas that John O'Keefe was alive before she murdered him, alone in Mansfield in her home. And things had really hit a breaking point way before Aruba. And we know that shortly after returning from Aruba, Karen Reed was writing texting Brian Higgins. So about a week after arriving back from Aruba, she's texting Brian Higgins. So let's look at this blog. Let's bring it in. And Innocence Fraud Watch looks at the text messages of Karen and John, and they tell a different story. So it's called John O'Keefe Rejected Cop Killer Karen Reed and Her Romantic or Sexual Advances, during morning of January 28th, 2022, and Dunkin Donuts Red Herring, including questions for Erin O'Keefe. So we know that Thursday, the 27th, I went over this good show, by the way, last show. I thought it was a good show, about Karen Reed and her ladder, the way the ladder was posed, and this bump on the head that she told the police John O'Keefe had gotten and was complaining about. And Innocence Fraud Watch asked the question if she was trying to make some kind of connection between John O'Keefe hanging her chandelier in her stairway and this bump on the head. So he was hanging a chandelier in the stairway. Karen Reed took this really odd picture of John O'Keefe's on the stairway, and she said he brought his ladder to do it, and she was cooking him a dinner to thank him for him while he set up the chandelier in her home with the ladder. But when the police came, the ladder was still there. It was just moved to the side. So was it really her ladder, or did he leave his ladder in the stairway after he fixed the chandelier? So Friday, the 28th of January 22, 2:16, this is this weird 2:16 a.m. phone call. It's not known on what time John O'Keefe went to Mansfield on the 27th, but at 2:16:10, so in the early morning hours of January 28th, Karen Reed called John. It was also not known by the public where Karen Reed was when she made her 2:16 and 10 seconds a.m. call, and if she stayed at her own home in Mansfield on the night of the 27th or at John's. The 2:16:10 call was touched on during Karen Reed's 2025 murder trial by Hank Brennan and Trooper Garino. Listen below.
Trooper, you shared with us that you downloaded the extraction of the phones that you identified, and you made reports based on specific identified features. For example, a conversation between two people.
Yeah, so I didn't do the extraction of Jen's phone, but I made those reports with the PDFs from the data extraction.
Relative to Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant's phones, you created a document that provided us the phone calls between them on January 29th?
Yes, that's correct.
And separately, you also provided a document that included all of the chats or text messages between John O'Keefe and the defendant on January 29th, 2022.
Yes, it also included the 28th.
Thank you.
Yes.
And in that compilation, did you put together or do you create or review a PowerPoint of those?
Yes, I did.
And what was the point of that?
Just to show the texts and calls in a chronological order, because that way you're not looking at two different documents, trying to compare and contrast the calls to text messages when each is coming in.
And did you begin that PowerPoint presentation with a call at 2:16:10 on January 28, 2022?
Yes, that's correct.
And are there additional chats or text messages earlier that morning?
Yes, there's a handful starting around 9:45 a.m.
Okay.
Revitalize your thinning hair and transform your weak ponytail.
Thank you. So it starts at 2:16:10. He started his started the report. Referring to the night of January 27th, Karen had said in a text to John, "Last night you were basically like, yeah, what about?" when we talked about the future. So why don't you just admit you're not into so much anymore? I think she means into it so much or us anymore. Okay, so that happened that night. At 7:18 a.m., Karen was caught on John O'Keefe's Ring camera waiting for her car to drop off her niece. Let's take a look at that. Wait, let me actually pull that up. I thought I pulled it up, but I didn't pull it up. My apology. Let me just open it and I'll fly through the commercials so you don't have to. Really? Did I really not pull that up? Oh, no, I did pull it up. Okay, I did pull it up. Hold on one second.
Did you review Ring video for January 28, 2022 and January 29, 2022?
I did.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show a number of segments of the video from January 28, 2022.
Okay, the one that's already in evidence?
It is, it's Exhibit 6.
Okay.
Thank you. When you reviewed the video from the Ring, that Ring provided for Mr. O'Keefe's home on Meadows, for January 28, 2022. Did you review it from the morning time at about 7:18:55 throughout the evening?
On the 28th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I could have video 119.
So for those listening on podcast, you see Karen Reed. Looks like she pulled out of John O'Keefe's driveway. I mean, not driveway, excuse me, garage directly. I mean, that would be a direct line in. And Kaley comes out. She throws her book bag into the back of Karen Reed's car. And then they set off. Karen Reed's going to drive her to school. Do any kids take the bus anymore? I didn't have this kind of luxury ride to school in the morning. We waited outside the driveway for the bus. And if you got like one year, you were on like some years you were just given like a bad bus schedule and you had to get up at an ungodly early hour because you were one of the first people picked up. You'd wait out in the end of the driveway in the cold. I don't know. I guess Aiden's kids wait for the bus. I don't know. It's just, seems like everyone's driving their kids to school now. All right. So there's that. Again, it's not clear to the public if Karen Reed had stayed at her home in Mansfield on the night of the 27th and then drove to Canton in the morning, or if she had stayed at John's. And with no ring camera footage for this period, it can only be speculated on. And at 8 a.m., the ring camera footage of Karen Reed arriving at John O'Keefe's house after dropping the niece off to school is also not publicly available, but based on the context of text messages, it is estimated she arrived to John's house at around 8 a.m. So Rejection. I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning, and you whack me in the face with a pillow, Karen Reed writes January 28, 2022. It appears Karen Reed felt rejected, that John O'Keefe had spurned her romantic and possible sexual advances, and this is what really set Karen off on January 28th. I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you, apparently. John O'Keefe, January 28th. After leaving John's house by around 9:19, at the latest, Karen had spent around 1 hour and 11 minutes on the phone to John during the course of the morning over 3 or possibly 4, see 10, 17, 13 a.m. below, separate calls. And at 9:19:35, Karen Reed called John O'Keefe. The call lasted 15 minutes and 29 seconds. At 9:35:04, Karen Reed's 15-minute and 29-second with John O'Keefe ended. 18 seconds later, Karen Reed called John back again, just giving him an 18-second break. At 9:35:22, Karen Reed called John O'Keefe. The call lasted 3 minutes and 55 seconds. 9:39:17. Karen Reed's 3-minute and 55-second call with John O'Keefe ended. 10 minutes later, Karen Reed texted John. 10:17:13. Did Karen Reed call John O'Keefe at 10:17:13 for 1 minute and 16 seconds? Or was this someone else? At 10:53:18, John O'Keefe called Karen Reed. The call lasted 52 minutes and 29 seconds. This is when she said she was working from home this day. When could you work with all these calls? 11:45 a.m., John O'Keefe ended his 10:53 call to Karen Reed, gaslighting. At 12:33 p.m., text messages suggest that they'd smoothed things over by lunchtime and everything appeared to be okay with Karen when she texted John, "No, life can pick you up sometimes. Please be happy with them and put away your frustration for the rest of the day. And be so proud of yourself, JJ." 2:16 to 3:04. In reality, the frustration lay with Karen Reed, and by 2:16:10, her behavior had changed. Which can be seen when she again referred to around 8 a.m., saying to John in a text, "I feel pretty shitty how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung. Especially when I've tried pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back over after everything you said." And John writes at 2:17:16, "Not sure what else you wanted me to do. I said I'm sorry and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it." So what I get out of this is like, if you don't want to come, I won't miss you. If you don't want to come out tonight, I won't miss you, Karen. Because it gets like all this communication from Karen to John is a burden to him. He's like, stop it. Stop texting me. Stop calling me. And she just keeps violating his boundaries over and over and over again, even sending a photo of himself with his father, proving that he's with his father, and proving that, once again, Karen Reed insisted that John O'Keefe send pictures to prove where he was and what he was doing, so she could keep her eyes on him at all times and, have her eyes on her victim at all times. It's really disturbing. How this was normalized in court, I don't get. But did she, so after, what I'd like to ask here is, did she jump back in bed with him after dropping off Kaley at school? Was he in bed having more of a leisurely day? And did she jump in bed with him and try to start something and he rejected her? Was that the beginning of something? Trying to hug and kiss you this morning and you whack me in the face with a pillow. And he's like, not how it went down, but okay. One of my favorite text messages from John O'Keefe to Karen Reed. John replied, "I'm not sure what else you want me to do. I said I was sorry and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it." Karen had then called John at 2:17 for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. This call ended at 2:20:06. She called John at 2:22:56 for 1 minute and 7 seconds. And that ended at 2:24:03. And 14 seconds later, Karen had called John back again, but he rejected her call. So at 2:25:18, she texted him, "Tell me if you're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this." John replied, "Things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever considered that?" Karen had called John at 2:28:40, and again he rejected her call. John then texted Karen 23 seconds later saying, "Kids are here, not in the mood to talk." Karen replied, "So you're not into it anymore?" Like, I'm just going to ignore the kids altogether. So you're not into it anymore. I'm going to continue this argument. That's fine, but I don't want to keep trying if you keep treating me like this. Followed by, "I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning and you whack me in the face with a pillow. Last night we're basically like, yeah, what about when we talked about the future? So why don't you just admit it? You're not into it so much anymore." Which John replied, "Not how it went down, but okay." Followed by, "Sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now," John texts. "So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently." Karen then called John at 2:32:47, and he again rejected her call. So Karen texted John, "Can you please admit your head is out of the game with us?" To which John replied to Karen with, "Oh my God, stop calling." Karen then texted 2:32:58, "Then why would you start with me this morning?" See, it's John starting with Karen, not Karen starting something with John. "You're setting me up to fail. This is all Karen's text, 2:33:26. You start a number of fights from your end. John then texted Karen, I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again. Followed by, not into fighting all the time, correct. Karen then texted John saying, if you tell me you're interested in someone else, you'll never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world. John seemingly replied with a blank message, to which Karen replied, then stop starting with me. See, it's such the narcissist playbook. It's never anything Karen Reed does. Always something John O'Keefe does. Hold on one second. I just got to take a drink of water. Hold on. Okay. At 2:32:20, Karen had again called John, and again he rejected her call. 22 seconds later, he texted, I'm not answering. Stop calling. Exhausting. That's how Innocence Fraud Watch puts the heading to this. Karen Reed is exhausting. Karen replied to John saying, can you please answer after how you treated me earlier? Karen again called John at 12:32:54, and again he rejected her call, texting back 8 seconds later saying, Kaley is right here. Karen replied, you start a rager with me out of nowhere, and then you tell me you're sick of fighting with me? Followed by, I'm going to grab a drink in a bit at 12:38:14. John liked Karen's text that she was going to grab a drink, and Karen called John, who again rejected her call. Karen texted John 10 seconds later saying, can you please answer? And John replied, no, Karen, not sure why you need to announce that you're grabbing a drink, but have fun. Seeing if you want to meet me later, Karen writes, followed by, can you please call me? John replied, have to take them to the doctor. He has practice. Karen texted back, yeah, 5 minutes. Karen called John at 12:43:01, and John let Karen's call ring out, which showed up as a missed call on his phone. Karen Reed called again at 12:43:45. Again, and John rejected her call, and 13 seconds later, he texted at 12:43:58. My father just walked in. More manipulation. Karen Reed replied, okay, can you please call me for 2 minutes? 12 seconds later with, I'm there when anyone else needs me. Karen then called John again, and again John rejected Karen's call. And 19 seconds later, John sent Karen a photo of his father sitting on his couch. Karen Reed texted 25 seconds later, said, yes, John, you gave me utter grief this morning. I'd like you to call me for a minute. Like she's now the school marm. I'd like you to report to the... Such a portrait of manipulation, isn't it? Like, you've treated me terribly. It's like guilt, manipulation. You're cheating. You're treating me terribly. I'm so into this, but I've been texting another guy and kissing another guy, but it's you who's not into it. 2:46:08. I've been trying to get over the hump is arguing, and now you're telling me you're not into things and you don't want to fight weekly but fly off the handle with me at 8 a.m. like you're setting me up to fail. I've been dealing with my own personal crisis over things I have zero control over. I'd like to lean on you sometimes. Instead, I just hear everything I've done wrong. So I think she's just saying personal crisis. I think this is her illnesses that may or may not be made up. We know that the brain tumor was just like a side effect from medication and not cancerous at all. And certainly she didn't have her whole colon removed. That's a whole nother story. 2:50:56, 2:51:13. Karen had called John, and again, John had rejected both calls at 2:52, 37, 2:53. Karen again calls John, and John lets both calls ring out. Karen texts John 17 seconds later saying, "You seriously cannot pick up the phone for 2 seconds." So Karen Reed called John again at 2:58, and again, John had rejected Karen's call. But at 2:59, John had called Karen for 5 minutes and 11 seconds. This call ended at 3:04:11, after which Karen had begun texting John's sister-in-law, Erin O'Keefe, a series of messages. Erin said of Karen, "She had texted me while I was waiting for the school bus." Let's listen to Erin's. So it gets a little awkward reading all of this. Let's look at Erin's testimony. I know I have it up here. Here we go.
January 28th. What, if any,
So again, this is going to be the first trial. Erin O'Keefe didn't give testimony at the second trial, unfortunately. Thought she was a pretty good witness. Certainly a better witness than her husband, Paul O'Keefe.
you have with Ms. Reed on that day?
She had texted me while I was waiting for the school bus, asking if there was any chance I was out without Paul.
Was that a typical thing that she would text you as far as the without Paul part?
No,
And you indicated that you were waiting for the school bus, is that right?
correct.
And at that time in January of 2022, you had two daughters, correct?
Yes, correct.
Were they sort of in the same school as far as on the same bus?
No, they were not. They're separate schools.
So fair to say one was maybe in elementary, one was in middle school?
Correct.
So as far as around that time that you received the text, would that have been the younger daughter or the older daughter that you were waiting for bus?
The younger daughter. It was after 3:00.
And who comes home, or at that time, who came home first, the younger daughter or the older?
Our older daughter.
And when you received that text from the defendant, what, if anything, did you, or how did you respond to it?
I said that I was waiting for the school bus and we had basketball on Friday nights.
And the basketball on Friday nights, was that something that was one of your daughters or both?
Both.
And do you recall, well, let me ask you this, with regard to your daughter's basketball, at least at that time, what, if any, sort of relationship did your husband have to those basketball teams?
He was the coach for both of them.
And was that something that was sort of like a local league, is that correct?
Town league.
Town. And did all of you, and by all I mean yourself, your husband, and the two girls, did you all go to both games that night?
Correct.
And do you recall about what time those games were?
6 or 7.
Now, Ms. Reed reached out to you and texted you, and then you responded as you described. What, if any, further conversation did you have with Ms. Reed on that day?
I asked her if everything was okay, if something was up. And she responded and said, "Just another day. I wish I didn't talk to an O'Keefe after 2004.
And how did you respond to that?
Which is weird because she's an O'Keefe. Does she think that Erin, because she married into the family, is an O'Keefe? Or did Erin share her problems with the O'Keefes with Karen and vice versa?
I said, "What happened? What's going on?" And they had bickered, I guess, about her taking Kaley to Dunkin Donuts in the morning before.
Right, which is Karen's story. Karen's not going to say, "I jumped into bed with John and after returning from Dunkin Donuts." I mean, I'm not saying that he loved Dunkin, the idea that she brought Kaley to Dunkin Donuts, but it seems from the text messages much more likely that she had jumped into bed with him or had tried to get physical with him and he wasn't into it. And did they start fighting during the hanging of that chandelier? And is that why he left his ladder there in a huff? Did he leave in a huff? And did she come to his house at 2:26 that day? that night and sleep over. Just some ideas. I don't know. You can't know. This is speculation, but it's speculation based on the text messages. So this is what she's telling Erin O'Keefe it's all about, which is the Dunkin Donuts. It's Dunkin'. I'm just too nice to the kids. Why aren't I meaner to the kids? John wants me to be meaner to the kids. Not feed them sugar for breakfast.
Or school.
And just to be clear, when you say they, you mean Johnny O'Keefe and Karen Reed?
Correct.
Do you recall sort of how that conversation evolved, or what, if anything, else was said during that time?
I just knew that they had gotten into some type, I don't know if it was an argument or there was something. They bickered about her taking them, and he said that she spoiled them.
Now, as far as your conversation with Ms. Reed in regard to the weekends, what, if anything, did the two of you talk about as far as sort of plans for the weekend?
I said I was anticipating a storm, so was probably going to hang in the neighborhood with everybody.
Now, as far as later on in that afternoon, what, if any, sort of further communication did you receive from Ms. Reed that day?
I think the last text was a picture, something that popped up in her memories of my children and Kaley and Patrick from the Cape that summer, and said, this just popped up in my memories and made me smile.
Now, did you have occasion to talk with Ms. Reed any further on that day, the 28th?
No, that was it.
Okay, that's the end of that testimony. But Karen tells Erin it's all about Dunkin' Donuts and her just treating the kids too nicely, spoiling them. Karen, okay, let's see, where are we? So Innocence Fraud Watch ends this with some questions, and they're always good. These questions are always good because they always give you a lot to think about. They're really not just questions for Erin O'Keefe. They're really questions for the reader to think about. What did Erin O'Keefe think Karen Reed was insinuating by her comment? If there was any chance I was without Paul. Why did Erin O'Keefe tell Karen Reed they had basketball on Friday nights? How did Erin O'Keefe feel about Karen Reed's statement? So I wish I didn't talk to an O'Keefe after 2004 in the knowledge she too was an O'Keefe, I'll bet by marriage. Yeah, I thought the same thing. How did Erin O'Keefe know John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had bickered about her taking Kaley to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning before school? Erin O'Keefe had said she just knew that Karen Reed and John O'Keefe had gotten into some type of I don't know, if it was an argument. How so? Erin O'Keefe said they bickered about her taking them. What did Erin mean about this? How did Erin O'Keefe know John O'Keefe had told Karen Reed on January 28th that she spoiled them? What evidence did she see, if any, that Karen Reed spoiled them? It certainly wasn't their testimony, Kaley and Patrick's. They didn't feel spoiled. Anything. Patrick talked about getting the cold treatment from Karen Reed. That I think they had an argument over steak tips. Like she wasn't eating them with enough joy, happiness to have them. And Kaley talked about Karen Reed running hot and cold, or just be like this coldness coming from Karen Reed. Other times she'd be okay. You just didn't know which Karen Reed you'd get. Did Erin O'Keefe find it odd when Karen Reed texted her, "This just popped up in my memories and made me smile," given the fact she previously said she wished she didn't talk to an O'Keefe after 2004? Did Karen Reed tell Erin O'Keefe that John O'Keefe had spurned her romantic or sexual advances on the morning of the January 28th? How often, if at all, did Karen Reed send texts to Erin O'Keefe like her "this just popped up in my memories and made me smile" text? Did Karen Reed regularly text or call Erin O'Keefe to complain to her about John O'Keefe? And if Karen Reed did regularly text or call Erin O'Keefe to complain to her about John, what was it that she complained about? Did John O'Keefe ever complain to Erin about Karen Reed? Did Erin O'Keefe meet Karen Reed for the first time in 2020 on a different day to her husband, Paul O'Keefe? Or did she or Paul make a mistake during their 2024 testimony? So they have their memories are different about meeting when they met. You would think they would meet Karen Reed for the first time together, but their memories are different. Take a listen.
That you first met Karen?
I believe it was Mother's Day, so maybe May of 2020.
Over the course, when was the first time that you recall meeting the defendant, Ms. Reed?
I believe it was in June of 2020 during COVID.
Based on sort of your understanding, when was that in relation to when they began sort of their relationship?
I think it was in February or March of that same year.
So right around the time that the pandemic caused a sort of general shutdown, correct?
I think so, yes.
Now, as far as you were aware, did you know of any sort of pre-existing relationship or any time that they had dated in the past prior to that February, March of 2020?
I learned that after the fact.
Okay. So fair to say during any sort of previous time that they may or may not have dated, you hadn't met Ms. Reed, you weren't aware of her at all?
Correct. I had not met her.
And do you recall sort of where you were or what the circumstances were the first time that you met the defendant?
I believe we were all coming to our house. It was either, it may have been a birthday party or Father's Day, but we were out on the patio. I think it was June.
Okay, so that's
Watch
that
what
story.
apples do to our body.
Trail map.
Let me just take that down so it's not in my ear. So that's a little bit different than the Dunkin Donuts story. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It makes a lot more sense to me than the Dunkin Donuts story. And it goes a lot better with the text message. I just can't imagine Karen Reed calling Erin O'Keefe. I know they were friendly, but saying, "Yeah, I jumped into bed with John." Or maybe he was out of bed and she tried something and he was not into it. But it seemed to put Karen Reed into some kind of, the rejection seemed to, I mean, that's just a little bit of the phone communication that day. It just never stops. She's relentless and completely violates any boundaries he tries to set up. But that is what I have for today, guys. That is the update on, this makes a lot more sense, at least in my head. I've never really bought this. I was like, what? When I first heard the Dunkin' Donuts story, I was like, what? They fought over what? Taking the kids to Dunkin' Donuts? Really? Really? That sounds like it may have been a small squabble that day, but that's not that's a tiny part of it. Tiny part of it. Legion says absolutely, Roberta. So I'll be returning to this sometimes, but we're going to be talking about other things too on this case, on this channel very soon. So please hit the thumbs up on your way out. Please support the channel, guys. Venmo, buy me a coffee, Patreon, all fantastic ways to support the channel. This is a smaller listener supported channel and I count on you guys to keep these to keep me making these episodes. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys very soon, hopefully tomorrow at 6. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, gin. Like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim.